It is March 25th. It is day 64 of the Trump presidency. We have some real shit show headlines for you today. Not that that's unusual. However, I just wanted to prepare you mentally and emotionally for some of the things I'm about to tell you. Okay, let's get started. Take a deep breath, because Mike Johnson is threatening to eliminate the federal courts. That's right. If they don't agree to just leave Trump alone, if they continue ruling against Trump, this is his exact quote. He said, and I quote, "We can eliminate an entire district court. We have the power over the courts and all these other things. And desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act." End quote. So, is it a constitutional crisis yet, kids? I mean, it's been one, hasn't it? You know what's so effed up about this? I heard that and I felt nothing. I didn't flinch. I wasn't surprised. It didn't increase my heart rate. Like, dead inside. Nothing. I expect this. I sent it to one of my best friends on TikTok who is a lawyer, and she's like messaging me back all in caps, like, what the fuck? I think that some of the people even that I'm close to were not expecting it to get this bad. And maybe because I've had so much experience with people who have personality disorders, I did. I expected it to get this bad. And here we are, and I do not want to be right. I do not. Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing. They're absolutely desperate, because if they let like justice start to prevail, they know that they're going to lose. And not only that, but they might get eliminated. Because they have this set up, it's like a house of cards. I think people used to watch that show a lot, right? Before Kevin Spacey, went nuts. Or actually before Kevin Spacey was outed as a predator. Let's just call a spade a spade. People really loved that show. But in any case, the truth of the matter from like behind the curtains is that, again, it's like a den full of snakes. They all hate each other. And I think a lot of them are waiting to see how things shake out. They can't really like directly come after Trump right now, but a lot of them probably want to. And I think that the people who are kind of like holding this thing pinned together know that. So they have to kind of like strike at this while the iron is hot, or it's going to be too late. And they're doing a good job of that. I mean, they're slamming through everything they possibly can. And if they can break the system enough, then the system won't be able to fight back. Because it's just a matter of time. Sorry. I love carbonation, but it's probably insane of me to be drinking like a super carbonated beverage while I'm doing this. But in any case, it's just a matter of time before one of these things like topples over the support they have, right? Which isn't much. And I think people are like, wow, this is really insane, right? They had this whole, and we'll get to more of this in a minute, but they had this whole hearing in court today about like the leaked text messages and stuff. So anyways, they kind of have to go as hard as they can while they have a little small opening to do so before, the gates close around them. In any case, it's a really wild thing to say out loud in the United States of America. So we'll see what becomes of that, but it is a headline. So one of the members of that group chat turned out to actually be in Russia at the time. And the group chat I'm referring to, I'm sure you've heard nothing, no other headlines, but this one today. The group chat I'm referring to is the one where Pete Hegseth had created a signal group to discuss war plans in Yemen, right? Isn't it in Yemen? I think so. Yeah, the Houthis. And then accidentally pulled the reporter from The Atlantic into the group chat. And apparently, Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's, he's the East envoy to Ukraine and Middle East. Or sorry, he's the envoy to Ukraine and the Middle East. He was in Russia at the time that text went out. So, I mean, they're worried about the national security implications of that. But do you really think Russia doesn't already know all this? Like, come on. Who is our president? Who is Tulsi Gabbard? Who are these people? Yeah, there's no chance that Russia doesn't know every single thing we're doing. I mean, Putin loves Trump so much he just had an emergency painting of him done and shipped here overnight from Russia because Trump is freaking out. So let's just, let's relax, okay? So this is, I think, the first step in just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what they're going to do to our elections. But Trump signed an executive order today that is going to require documentation proving your citizenship in order to register to vote. And it's going to require all ballots be submitted by election day, regardless of if they're coming from overseas or, if you're voting absentee, it doesn't matter. If it's not in by election day, it doesn't count. So that's different. You know what I mean? Especially considering our postal service is about to be exploded into smithereens. So hopefully people will take that into consideration and just go vote in person. And I know for some people that's impossible. If you're an expat, you just don't vote anymore. I mean, realistically. Or you're voting like way, way ahead of time. And your vote may or may not ever get here. But knowing Trump, first of all, I don't even know if we're going to have another election. And I know a lot of people think that that's fear-mongering, but I don't know if you're paying attention. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Lots of things could still happen, right? Aliens could still land. Bigfoot could save us. We just don't know. Okay, so on to the hearing at Capitol Hill that happened today over the leaked classified signal messages. They were grilling the crap out of Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe today, and I saw some of the video. I actually don't know the name of the guy who was doing it, but he was doing a good job. And they just kept calling them out because basically Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe just kept robotically saying like that the text messages were not classified. And the guy who was grilling them was like, okay, so then like share them with us. Tell us what they said. And they would just like not say anything. They would just like nod and stare. And he was like, all right, so they are classified. Like you can't have this both ways. You can either show us what the hell the text messages said, or you can admit that they're classified, but you can't do both. You can't not show us and say that they're not classified. Sorry, we're not going to just take your word for it. And a lot of people are like, why haven't you confiscated their devices? Yada, yada, yada. And I don't understand why they couldn't also just go directly to the guy from The Atlantic. I think he claims he deleted them, but then he dispersed some screenshots. So I don't know, man. Anyways, I don't know anyone who thinks these people are telling the truth, and Tulsi Gabbard is literally a Russian asset. And why did we give her this position? Because our country is compromised. Anyways, the PM of Denmark is pretty upset about the U.S. visit to Greenland, and now J.D. Vance is going with Usha Vance. And they're basically just like, this is aggressive, and it's a move of aggression, and you should not be going there while you're saying these things. Trump claims that he was invited, or that we were invited, but they can't seem to produce any evidence of that. And literally Greenland is saying you were not invited. So, we're one step closer to a war with a very peaceful country that absolutely does not want to go to war with us. That it's not, can you call it a war in that instance? I mean, yes, because it would still be a war. They would still be forced. It's an invasion, you know what I mean? very old school of Trump to decide that we're going to just start invading countries like it's the year 1400. We're just going to start killing people and taking stuff. And not to say that we haven't been doing that, but, we're a little bit more discreet about it in modern times. And I guess we're just not anymore, I don't know. Some people think that's a good thing. Some people think it's better to be out in the open with this stuff. And sure, I don't disagree with that. I think maybe there's a true opportunity for a deeper level of healing for all of humanity that will come after this period of darkness. I don't know, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. Just because there's a call for growth doesn't mean humanity is going to take it. We might not make it through, and I'm very on the fence about that. I don't know if we will or not. We'll find out. Speaking of the apocalypse, Dr. Oz is now one step closer to leading. I don't want this to be a sentence, and I'm sorry, okay? It's not my fault. Dr. Oz is one step closer to leading Medicare and Medicaid. It's kind of funny because it's like it's like the celebrity. It's like an actor that's playing a doctor that is now leading Medicare is crazy. That's a crazy concept. These are just reality TV snake oil salesmen that are just somehow now in real positions of power. And Dr. Oz is an idiot, dude. He's literally he's a scam. He's like a sham of a human being. I can't, anyways, here we are. Hope your grandma doesn't need that Medicaid. Yikes. Yeah. Anyways, there are massive protests happening in Israel right now. And this is something that you probably won't hear on American news. There's hundreds of thousands of people protesting, and they are demanding several things. They're demanding a deal between Israel and Hamas to release the remaining hostages, which Netanyahu obviously gave up on that because he doesn't actually give a shit. What he cares about is clearing the land so that they can build their golden monopoly hotel on the seashore and whatever else they plan to do with that land, him and Trump. Yeah, it's not about they don't care who dies. They've never cared. And they're also protesting, I guess Netanyahu has been attempting to weaken their judiciary system. Who does that sound like? Yeah, these guys they're running a playbook. It's like football. They're just running a World War II playbook. They're rerunning the same one that was used in World War II. And hey, it's working in a lot of places. It's also working in like Hungary and I don't even remember all the places. Where is the other one? Turkey. I don't know. There's a bunch of dudes that are all the same that are kind of doing their little synchronized authoritarian takeover all over the planet. So that's comforting. So there's over 100,000 people that were marching towards Netanyahu's private home, and they're chanting, "If there is no deal, we will burn the country down." Hey, I celebrate you. Proud of them. Hope he's scared. I hope he can't sleep. You know why he's probably another reason why he's weakening the judiciary system is because he's a criminal who was on trial just before this war started for a bunch of embezzlement, like a bunch of like white collar money shit. And like they were just about to take him down, but like as long as he keeps the country in an emergency and at war, it like pauses that for some reason, which is a terrible idea. It's a terrible law. So yeah, he is running from the law. They have a lot in common, don't they? I feel like they really do. No wonder they're buddies. So NASA has removed their pledge from their website, saying that they would pledge to land a woman and a person of color on the moon. You know what? Honestly, if white men want to be alone, we can just leave. Like, let's just, we'll just make a little space for us or whatever. We just take a part of the country. Y'all go over there and we'll skedaddle. You know what I mean? Except the problem is that, like, you want to stand on top of our shoulders and our backs. And I just don't see that happening this time. I'm sorry. Again, I'll reiterate. I think a lot of people would rather not be alive than do a little part 2 with you. So good luck. We'll see how this goes. I don't foresee it going well. Speaking of things not going well, consumer confidence has slid down more than 7 points, the lowest level since 2021, which was obviously a very bad year because of the pandemic. And the decline began immediately after the election in December. So that's not ironic. And it's getting, worse every month because people are looking at what's happening. They're looking at the tariffs. They're looking at economic uncertainty. They're looking at social unrest. And they're saying, they're predicting a deeper recession. Stagflation is already happening, which is, I know, the Fed's least favorite word. Yeah. So, it's not a good situation economically, and it's probably going to get considerably worse before it gets better. If it ever gets better. Who knows? Maybe when it gets better, again, we'll just be paying for things with leaves. We'll be using the barter system again. I don't know. So this is the worst story of all time. This was the only thing that actually got a rise out of me today. All the rest of that, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. This, I was like, you know what, motherfucker? You know what? Okay, so Florida is considering lifting the child labor laws. Do you know why? Because they kicked all the immigrants out of their country. And now they have no one to fill low-wage, undesirable jobs. So they are quickly pushing a law through to allow 14-year-olds to work overnights on school nights. I just honestly, so DeSantis is fully backing this, by the way. Here's the thing about piece of shit white men. They know that it's not going to apply to their children because he's got enough money and power. However, the country that they're trying to create is going to actually destroy their children. And it's going to destroy their relationships to their children. There's too much awareness now. You can't undo the social consciousness that's already been created. People can choose to ignore it. People can sort of like choose to be evil. Sure, absolutely. They can choose to be evil. They can choose to be selfish. A lot of these things are starting to heavily affect even the people who made those choices, right? Like veterans who voted for Trump. There's people flying their Trump flags upside down now. Veterans. Because they're pissed. And this will affect children. Your own children. Yes, it will. Because they'll have friends at school that'll end up dropping out. The society that they're creating is so disgusting. It's so backwards. It's so sad. It's so desperate of them. And it's causing a backlash of absolute vile hatred towards the people that are trying to implement these laws. This makes me fucking sick. The fact that you would allow that to happen to anyone's child, you can go straight to hell. And there's very few things that'll make me like, you know what? Actually, on TikTok, I'm like way more gloves off. Because TikTok's going to be banned in 10 days. So you can say whatever you want over there. It doesn't matter anymore. I try to be a little bit more professional and buttoned up here. I mean, I obviously do swear sometimes, but not nearly as much. I swear like an absolute sailor over there. But this is This is really low. Even for Florida. Even for Florida man Ron DeSantis, this is low. So it made it through the Senate Commerce and Tourism Committee today. It has 2 other committees that it needs to make it through, and then it will go before the full Senate of like Florida or whatever. And then it'll be a law that you can send your kids straight to hell. You can just have them pick that fruit in the middle of the night, you know? Because why else have kids, right? You had kids to do slave labor for you, right? Isn't that why you had kids? I don't know, man. I shouldn't say this. I shouldn't say this out loud. I am really considering saying this out loud. Let's just say, you know, some people think that in the original, you know, version of like biblical text, and this, it really doesn't say this in the Bible, okay? But the folklore of Satan and God, right, is that Satan disagreed with God creating man in this particular way, okay? It doesn't really go into what that argument was about. But let me say this. I think there's a lot of suffering here. I don't know how I feel about that. I do believe that suffering can sometimes refine a soul in a way that makes it into more of like a diamond, or, you know, you can say whatever you want about it. The pressure pulls out the essence of a person, right? But sometimes I look at, you know, where things are headed, and I'm like, I don't think this was a good idea. I just don't. I feel like it is torture to, again, to pit this sort of like animal, because obviously there's a lot of people here on this planet that have sort of like still a very like snake-like mentality of just like them for themselves. They don't care about stepping on the necks of children, literal children. They don't care about like taking your grandma's last meal. They don't care about like your grandma can't afford her insulin. They don't care. Clearly, right? I think we can see that now clearly. So there's like that part of the brain is sort of like fighting this other part that's trying to like help humanity grow into something that deserves to survive, okay? It's really that cut and dry. Into a more collaborative and kind and I guess sort of like utopic, right? And so it's those two forces kind of pitted against each other. And I just don't know. It seems like that's a terrible thing to do to a consciousness, to like make us aware enough to be able to see sort of what's going on. And then, I mean, I guess not everybody is aware of this, but I look around and I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of really bad people out here. Anyways, that's probably not the note to end on, but that's what I have for you tonight. That's what I have for you tonight, is that we're going to put the kids back in the mines. And I guess also that maybe I'm on Satan's side. You know what I mean? I just don't know if I agree with God here. I feel like maybe we made a mistake. Anyways, I'll see you in the Ark tomorrow, maybe.